You're listening to the Devil Dog Talk Show.
This show contains explicit material and is recommended for ages 18 and older for mature audiences only. But hey, it's the internet.
Introducing Brandon Cesmat.
Singing with you in the room upstairs, after praying over palms, after answering Pharisees, after parables, we were singing the old psalms. Lord, rescue us from our stumbles. Lord, deliver us from our tears. We love you because you listen. People have ears but can't hear. Then you broke some bread, we drank your wine. Didn't know what it meant at the time. You washed our feet, we received your gift. What was lost in our lives now, let us live. Judas did bread and had to leave to fulfill what must be done. You said the rooster will crow 3 times. I said you are my only one. Then you broke some bread, we drank your wine. Didn't know what it meant at the time. You washed our feet, we received your gift. What was lost in our lives now, let us live. Garden, the agony, I fell into a dream. The world a topsy-turvy place, all these mixed up songs and screams. As I work my way through your maze of grace, let me hear your voice, let me see your face. On the ones you send, ones from whom on earth, just how your stone turns. Let us break some bread, drink your wine, maybe know a little more this time. We'll watch some feet, pass along your gift. What was lost in our lives now? What was lost in our lives? What was lost, let us live. So pass me over till you can pass me through, till I lift my cross and follow you through storm and cloud, to sit by your river with the one betrayed, the mercy giver. Praise the passing over, praise the passing through, praise having anything left to lose.
And we can make a music sandwich with the interview. That's the whole point here.
Yeah.
So we got the intro song that we just listened to, which is a beautiful gospel song. So who we got today here right now? We have Brandon, and Brandon, I'm gonna introduce it the same way. I don't have your last name. What is that last name there?
Oh, it's the worst possible name that a musician could have. It's Cesmat. It's spelled Cesmat. And when you ask for my music,
on Amazon Prime or whatever, Alexa, whatever, they never get it right.
I bet.
I should have changed my name to Cary Grant or John Cougar or something that the digital stuff would recognize.
Yeah, that it just makes it easier. So let me just welcome you to the Devil Dog Talk Show. Today we have Brandon Cesmat. Did I nail it?
You did it so well. Now, if we could
Look at
only
that.
get Alexa
Look at that.
to buy in on that, we'd have something.
Look at me. I'm dancing around, guys. Now, today we just listened to that introduction song, which was amazing. I very much dug not only the lyrics, but the stylings and the guitar was just gorgeous. Of course, Dusk loves to fill in the blanks with yes, and then we tweaked it this way. It had 30 different recordings and stacking the vocals and of course, me being me, I always geek out on that stuff. But so we roll into it. We have today with the Devil Dog Talk Show, Brandon Cesmat here today at the dBu Ranch for our dBu Ranch Daze on the Devil Dog Talk Show. And we met last week, I believe it was. We were moving a plate reverb.
Yeah, we did some heavy lifting.
Yes, we did. I felt it for the next few days after that. And if it wasn't for the beers I got down at Rincon, I don't think I'd been able to do anything afterwards.
Yeah, beer after the heavy moving. Yeah, it's a good combo.
Yes, it is. Now, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself a little bit and how you got into the music world and a little bit about yourself and if you would like, a little bit of history of Valley Center.
Oh, okay. My name is Brandon Cesmat. I grew up in Valley Center. I was born down the hill in Escondido, but lived here for most of my life, all within about the same area around Rock Hill Ranch. And, I don't remember when music first became big in my life. I think it was my grandfather. He played piano, and apparently, when I was a kid, I had colic, and he would walk with me and sing me Buffalo Gals, except he'd come from Canada, and I think he was more comfortable in French really than English, but he would just sing dee dee dee, and apparently one of the first things I ever said was dee 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 some more, Grampy.
Oh my goodness!
And so I think that was my introduction to music. There was a lot of other things to follow. I don't know the first time I played or sang, but certainly by the time I was in, I know I got some guitar lessons when I was in fourth grade, but I got interested in football, and I didn't do much music, and then I got into high school, and there was a band here called the Sprouts, and it was run by a very dynamic piano player named Judy Roth. And she lost her bass player.
Okay.
And this guy I used to ride horses with, John Roselle, he said, "Hey, there's this kid over on the other side of the valley. He played guitar a long time ago. I bet you could teach him bass." So they taught me bass, and that began to get me playing. And I even switched high schools so I could get into a stage band, and that band was invited to play at the Montreux Jazz Festival in 1979. And I went to college thinking I was going to be a musician, but it's hard to describe the things that kind of turned my head. But one of the things that happened to me was my wife happened to me, and she didn't want to go to Northridge. I was at Northridge, CSU Northridge. And so I had to move back to San Diego State, and nothing against San Diego State, but it just was going a different direction than I had been going. So I ended up going into the English and Comparative Literature department. And ultimately, I would get my Master of Fine Arts in creative writing with correlative study and screenwriting, and an emphasis on a literary emphasis on Shakespeare's plays. And for my thesis, I did have Dr. David Ward Steinman from the music department participate. My thesis was titled "Enemy Song," and you can
awesome.
You can find it as a book titled "When Pigs Fall in Love." But I'd say about 80 to 90% of that book is from "Enemy Song," and there were certain stories that dealt with music, and that's why I wanted Dr. Ward Steinman to look at it to make sure I didn't get too outside my lane.
See, that's remarkable. So when you were going as a young man and you're developing your thesis, how did that motivate you to continue on your path to music?
Music was in my face everywhere I went. I got a job as a researcher on a documentary about a Capeño elder from Warner Springs, and her whole thing was remembering the culture through songs. So traditionally they had a song cycle that ran 3 days, and she knew a day and a half, and her grandson was able to. I happened to, just from doing the documentary, I happened to be there when he with the help of 2 elders recreated a lost deer song. And so I guess, music wouldn't let me alone. I was trying to do this other stuff, but everything was music. And so I think when I was in graduate school, I was working as a bartender of all places, the Belly Up Tavern in Solana Beach. And so I was hearing music on a real regular basis. And I was not a musician. I think I'd really tried to stop playing consciously. I mean, I was working on a thesis, and it was hundreds of pages long, and there was really no time for music. But there was this other bar back, Jim Kibbe. He said, "We're putting a band together, right? It's like the oldest line of every movie. We're putting the band together," and so we started a band called Rhythm Factory, and so that went for a while, and then we all went our separate ways. And I suppose I didn't play again for a long time. And at church, at Ridgeview Church in Valley Center, I was just the guy in the back row, loving my sacred texts. That's all I was about. And all of a sudden, they went through 2 worship leaders, and so a friend of mine said, "Don't you play guitar?" And so I started to play guitar. And right about that time, I mean, it's like Doug White stepped in, and he had been not playing. He started to play. And so we've been playing together in various configurations since 1998.
Oh, wow.
And it's been a long time. And we've developed a pretty good shorthand to get things done. And but somewhere along the line, the worship team music also led to playing in another band at various parties and bars around North County. And that band was called Not for Hire, and Doug was in that. And matter of fact, we just had a reunion about 3 weeks ago, and over in Vista, and that was fun.
Did you guys actually play, or was it reunion where you just hanging out?
We played.
Nice.
We played, and we insisted on playing our originals in the set. I mean, it was mostly a cover band, but we are irrepressible writers, so we insisted. The crowd, I don't know if it was our introductions were deceptive or something, but they danced to the songs. So I think we got away with it.
That's good. You got to always plug yourself. That's the thing I've learned in life, is if you're not tooting your own horn, your horn's not going to get tooted.
Hey, have you ever seen the movie La La Land?
The one with Ryan Gosling?
Yeah.
No.
Oh man, you got to see this scene. He's a piano player in a Hollywood restaurant.
Okay.
And tooting your own horn, I agree with you. But it's a great scene, and I think any musician that's ever written an original piece of music looks at that scene in La La Land where this piano player, played by Ryan Gosling, is trying to get his song across, and it's a good conflict at the beginning of the movie.
I got to check that out. You're not the first person to tell me I have to watch that movie. My sisters actually get on me. They know, like, I like musicals. I'm not in any way, shape, or form afraid or nervous to say that. I love musicals, and my wife hates them. So that's the reason why I have not seen them.
Hey, tell her John Legend's in it.
Is he?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
So here's
he
the
loves
deal.
him. She loves him.
It's not a pure musical. You know,
Okay.
those pure musicals where like, you know, anybody anywhere can sing at any time.
Mm-hmm.
There is some of that, but a lot of it, because the guy's a piano player, and he's working on a career. It's like real onstage stuff, and some of the
Okay.
best stuff that way is with John Legend.
I got to check that out. So to kind of bridge back to that character and yourself, when you guys were playing from 1998 to now, which is 2023, listeners, that was in the 1900s. At the end of the 1900s, my wife and I we had this conversation just the other day. My youngest sister says that young kids now are saying that those people that were born then were born in the 1900s. And we just look at each other and like, no-uh. And then we did the math because that new show, the 90s show, not the 70s show, came out. And it's the relative. It's the same gap of time. But it's so like just smacking me in my face. Like, yeah, she's right. It is. It's been quite a while. It is a matter of time. And having that reunion where you guys were able to play your original music, to kind of describe where you're at now and in between, how did you keep the motivation to learn, practice? Because you clearly learned different instrumentation. You learned the bass from guitar, the guitar probably piano. And how did that help you stay motivated, again, with the church to play and then also with your guys' band?
Well, the church made a couple of albums, and I was responsible for a certain number of songs on each one.
Okay.
So that kept me motivated. In that group, there was a singer-songwriter named Taylor Hook, and both Doug and I worked on her albums and did a lot of work arranging and playing on those albums. So there were other projects we were involved in, and then every Sunday, we'd have to, probably without unpacking the car from the Saturday night before, we'd have to, stand up and play again. So there was a lot of that. In that period of time, they did a series of fundraisers. They did 3 musicals, and I worked very hard on those. We have a good community orchestra in Valley Center, so that when they do a musical, they can do it with strings. And we had some great conductors. And I think I was Jesus in Godspell. I was Tevye and Fiddler on the Roof. I was Captain Von Trapp in Sound of Music. And those take huge chunks of your life to try to embody those people that are expressing themselves through songs. So there was some serious projects in there.
Yeah, that is a tremendous amount of work just to think back. Thinking about it, like you're not just doing something that is profound as the character. Like you kind of glazed over Jesus. Not going to say anything mean about that, but glazing over Jesus. I'm like, hey, that's kind of a big deal. If I'm going to sit back and play a character, that would be a huge character to embody, and you'll probably swamp me. Like I watched the movie. Was it the old movie? The Passion of the Christ. Back in the 1900s, that came out. Oh man,
Mel Gibson picked.
Yeah, and so
they're doing part 2 now.
I'm curious. That's going to be interesting tale to tell.
It'll be Acts. It'll all be about the resurrection and the formation of the disciples, which actually is a part of what Broke Some Bread's about.
Really?
Yeah.
See, that's a really great way to tie in both music and art. And as yourself to, portray characters, do you feel as though that helps you when you're sitting down to write a piece of music, to embody different characters in theater? And does that give you a different perspective, or does that kind of help you laser focus what you are?
Well, I didn't want to play Jesus.
Okay.
I was out hiking, and the director called me, and they couldn't find anybody to play him. And there's a song in Godspell called All for the Best. And I love the song. And I thought, I want to be Judas, because that's a character. You know, I can identify.
That's awesome to say.
I can identify with the character who messes up. And so I told the director, I said, you know, please, you know, let me be Judas, and I'll be glad to help you out. I really don't want to be Jesus. And she said, oh, I wish you hadn't said that. Jesus didn't want to be Jesus. Now you have to be Jesus. And
wow, what a great way to put that back on you.
You know, and so when you get that Garden of Gethsemane scene, you know, where he says, you know, Father, let this cup pass my lips, you know, he wasn't, you know, he didn't want that. I was thinking more about the flaws, but that was like the first direction she gave me. And I think it, you know, it really helped me do something with the character that maybe a lot of other characters, a lot of her portrayals of Jesus hadn't done. A lot of them are, you know, he's just somebody who's too perfect for me to understand. But that line from the Bible, from the Gospels, opens a window to another aspect of him. And so anyways, that, but how did that help with the writing of this song? It's kind of that Rebel Jesus aesthetic, where we do a lot of worship songs, and there's this treadmill, and the Christian music industry is constantly churning out these songs, but there's not a lot of different themes. And you know, you go to some conferences and they'll talk about that. And I happen to know that there's this one verse, I think it's Matthew 26:30, which talks about Jesus and the disciples singing. And as far as I knew, and maybe, you know, somebody out there knows better, I don't think that there's a hymn about it, which I always thought was strange. And so I started to look into the verses. You know, they're singing before the Last Supper, and the explanation of what they were singing is that they were getting ready for the Passover, so they were probably singing versions of Psalms 115 through 118. So I went and I looked those up, and I immediately realized why this is not usually covered. If Psalm 115 through 118 is what Christ and the disciples were singing, it's not the kind of the exuberant joy that I think a lot of times is called for in a church service. Okay. And so I tried to stick as close to the text as I could with the song. You know, there had been, you know, I've been asked to cover a couple of David Wilcox songs for church albums, and they had been the subject of great controversy. Fortunately, all I had to do was sing, and the other people kind of fought it out, but they did not like David Wilcox. Two of the songs, Sunshine on the Land and Vista, both of them deal with somebody dying. Okay. And we had a worship leader say, that song makes me want to kill myself.
What a thing to say.
Well, he said it to the pastor. I think it was the guy who wanted the song. The pastor said, I want this song because it makes some philosophical point I want to preach on. And, but yeah, it was a pretty frank discussion. So I knew that there can be a lot of heat around songs in a church context. So
do you feel that, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I just wanted to hit on one. Do you feel that controversy is based off of personal perspectives or the gospel itself? It's
probably a little bit of both, but ultimately it's going to be our personal perspectives that, you know, when we come to God as we are, and if we can come to God honestly as we are, we're going to resonate with God with our flaws. I mean, that's how God plays us. And so the tricky part, I think, is to arrange the music, because no two people are going to resonate the same way. So you have to be, you know, you have to be flexible and and adventurous and willing to make mistakes. And so I think whether it's, I'm so flawed, I'm not prepared to seek out the translation flaws that might be in the scriptures. I just know that I look at the various versions, I look at words that are coming, I look at words that are going, and we can have that discussion. But ultimately, those things are not going to change, I hope, how I treat my family and my neighbors.
That's awesome to put it that way, because ultimately, to me, the story of what Jesus Christ and God represent in the gospel is to accept all those flaws. And like you bring up the instrumentation, like we are God's instruments, and all of us we're heavily flawed. Especially me. I will never ever be that person that doesn't ever say, no, dude, I am a 100% muckamaroo. I will make mistakes. I will fall on the ground, and then I'll get up, and then I'll hit that out of the park, smackaroni, cheese it straight across the park, straight up. But it's because, like what you're saying, I'm not afraid to fall on my face. I'm not afraid to try new things, and I'm not even afraid to ruffle feathers. Like what it sounds like to me, to have a song like you were saying where the pastor and a gentleman are having the conversation about, God, this song makes me want to kill myself. It's ultimately because of that fear of, facing death and mortality. But that's something that really, hey, as a Christian, I'm kind of looking forward to, having all this knee pain, back pain, every other kind of pains, trials and tribulations. At the end of the day, I really would like to meet the dude and be like, yo, what's up with that? What was it? Hey, you couldn't change this model of car. You couldn't refurbish something a little different. And then I'd probably get beat down by a stick. That's Old Testament stuff. At least it's not going to be bigger than my thumb, right? But so to me, to move forward in the conversation and the way that you tie in your songs and the way that you write songs, musically speaking, you have a very wide breadth of talent. Piano, bass, I believe you said. There was a guitar. That was the other instrument. And vocals. How do you focus in on a part of a song first? Do you go with the vocals? Do you go with the drums? How do you compose that?
I like to go with the bass and the drums. Dusk introduced me to a drummer, James Reinhardt, and I don't play drums. And so I lean heavily on James's know-how. So I played James' version of Broke Some Bread, and James said, the bridge needs to be twice as long. And so I wrote a whole nother couplet to extend the bridge. And then, so I think that's how we went. I think we went drums and bass, scratch vocal. And then I think I put my acoustic guitar on next. And Andrew Saliba, who plays the electric guitar on the track, he'd made a record and good experimental music, and he'd done this one song I really loved, and I thought it was a bunch of electronics, and he says, no, it's just me with my volume pedal.
Oh wow!
And so Andrew has such an amazing control of his attack and decay. We brought Andrew in, and he filled out the finger picking on the acoustic guitar. He filled that out with his chords and his volume pedal, and gave it just a wonderful ambience. After that, we got him to do the guitar solo, and then Dusk. Notice that my bass part, I've got this lumpy up and down bass part. I like, but what happened was the guitar part is in the middle of the acoustic neck, the bass part is in the middle of the bass neck, and that left the bottom open for a synth. And so Dusk started to double the bass part with a synthesizer.
Oh, wow!
And so we added that, and then we finally got to the vocals last.
Okay. Excuse me. Just choked up by it, all that explanation.
That was the blow by blow. Yeah.
No, it's really remarkable because so to break it down for the experience that you've had here so far as a musician, because it sounds like it's really heavily influenced how you see to compose music now? Because to me, being able to put the drum and the bass together, and then to come back with the guitar, and like you were saying, the gentleman with the outstanding control, but then have Dusk, be that producer's ear. How was your experience with dBu Ranch and with Dusk in learning and expanding on your portfolio of music prowess? Is that right? Yeah, prowess. Yeah.
Well,
like
to be blessed enough to get to record one more song, that's what we're doing. It's interesting. You play a song in isolation. You're playing by yourself on your guitar, your piano, and then you come to dBu Ranch where Dusk has all this great retro gear, and you might you've been listening to yourself at home, and all of a sudden he says, try this mic or try this instrument, and so we've taken a lot of chances here. We used a tacked piano he's got on one of the songs that we worked on. We've used a Hammond B3 organ. He just got a Fender Rhodes, which we're using, and so Dusk has got a real adventurous spirit. We noticed when we got the Fender Rhodes that there's a low. I think is it the low C? The low C, you hit the low C and it slides.
Oh, really?
Up an octave. And we were trying to figure out how can we work this in the song, and we spent some time on. We never did it, but that kind of experimental spirit to say what kind of sounds can we bring to this song that it's never had before. And so I think the first song we worked on was something called Joy and Wine, and that one is kind of my vision. And Broke Some Bread is really Dusk's. I really fully tried to embrace. He had some ideas about the vocals, and we went down the rabbit hole together. I mean, there was a day, I think he said that there's 30 vocal tracks on that song. And, we just get to the end and he goes, okay, go again. And so we just, layered it so that we could create something that you won't find in the hills of Valley Center. And that's a vocal choir. You might find a choir of coyotes, but you will not find a vocal choir. And, but Dusk made one. And that was a joyous surprise.
That's really what's up. Like, to me, you're really tying in the whole experience to dBu Daze and dBu Ranch, because the dBu Ranch Daze series that we're working on is kind of to expand on my mental flabbergastery. And I know that's not a word, but I'm just, every time I come into the studio, I'm just like, whoa, I didn't see that last time. I didn't see that last time. I didn't see, holy crap. All right, cool. We got to go play with the plate reverb we put up now. All right, cool. Even better. And to hear that you had the same Daisy experience where you're just kind of like, wow, like a kid in a candy shop. I think that's the best. It's better than Disneyland for me, being an audio geeky type of guy.
Right.
But for yourself to be a musician, it's got to be a very different perspective, but equally as amazing. To wrap it up a little bit, on the song that you'll be playing live today, what was the motivation behind it, and how did you come up with something like that?
I think I'm gonna play Blue Hallelujahs. It's a song that Dusk and James and I have been working on, and Doug plays a guitar solo on the track. The way Blue Hallelujahs came about was a woman died. I didn't know. I didn't really know her religious beliefs or not, but she was a writer, and as a writer, I respect that, and I felt for her. I loved her writing, and it would be, I was going to miss her. And I remember saying something to somebody, and they said, a good friend. I was telling about this. Says, that's just a bummer. I'm going to go listen to and she named her Christian music, because she doesn't have to hear any of that depressing stuff.
Yeah.
And so I began to think, there are these frequent references. So I tried to pull together, Jeremiah the weeping prophet, and I heard a very interesting sermon where a theologian had argued that Jesus wasn't crying with Martha and Mary; he was crying at them. And I'm not sure that I totally agreed. So I felt like if you don't agree, the best critique of anything is to write your own song and open yourself up for criticism. So that's the song I'm going to play for you. It's, again, me trying to stick close to the scriptures to say that the gospel has wider applications than I think we often give it credit for. Yeah.
That's a very powerful statement. And I completely agree with you on that. Wow. I'm very excited to hear the song because I really dug the song that we just listened to in the intro. And to give it the absolute outs here, do you have any shout outs? Or you know what? No, let me ask it this way. How do we get in contact with you, Brandon Cesmat?
Well, most certainly you want to get in contact with my music that's on Apple Music and Amazon Prime. I have an album out called California Noir.
Nice.
And again, I didn't know the trouble I was making for myself. Alexa, as far as I can tell, is totally baffled by a mixture of English and French. But look
Her
for
AI needs updating. Yeah.
Look for California Noir. Ask for the song "Devil No Doubt." That one seems to be getting a fair amount of attention.
Nice.
And otherwise, I've got Cesmat Music on Twitter and Instagram. And that'd be a great place to see y'all.
And how do you spell Cesmat again?
It's Cesmat. It's a silent T.
I would never have guessed that.
Like in ballet or Chevrolet or any of that.
Yeah, no. Well, the first part, the T I would have got, but that C at the beginning, I was, no, maybe that's the problem with Siri.
C. Yeah, you should either your name should begin with an S or a K.
Yeah.
This business of having a C that could go either way. It's
trickery.
It's trickery.
Yeah.
But you know what? It's a way you'll know who your real friends are.
And honestly, once you get it right, this is the reason why the Devil Doc Talk Show, everybody goes, the Hawana. Once you get it, you won't forget it. That's the thing. It's very much it's got a cadence to it, right? But your name is so unique where it's like, once you get it right, you're not going to go left. That's pretty easy to remember. Cesmat. Look at that. All right, so any shout-outs to wrap up today's interview, and that way we get moving into the live music.
Well, obviously anything dBu Ranch sponsors is something that Valley Center is so glad to have. I would say Valley Center Library, Earth Day, April 22nd. Let's see here, Andrew and I and Mark Sarna will be giving a concert there at the library. So if you're around Valley Center on April 22nd, please come listen.
Nice. Awesome. And thank you again, Brandon, for your time. Thank you for being on the Devil Doc Talk Show and being a part of our dBu Ranch Daze. That's Daze, D-A-Z-E, because I'm still in a daze from meeting Dusk and being here, as many days as I have been. And I'm still always just flabbergasted to meet the artists that are recording here, of course, the local talent. And again, anything I can do to help promote and get the songs going, of course, that's what we're going to be doing today. You guys are going to be listening. You just heard the song, and you're going to be listening to the song live. So be sure to tune in, check out Brandon Cesmat on Twitter, Cesmat Music, and check out all the Instagrams, links, and websites that you can. Thank you for your time again.
Thank you for listening.
All righty.
Well, here's my joyful noise, that creation song. I sit here in the multitude with my blue clothes on. Yeah, I'm in sky lament. You're in river song. That's the blue. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. In the temple gate, Jeremiah wept before the stony crowd. Tragedy turned to comedy as time allows. Smile if you can recognize the then and the now. That's the blue. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Cellars, hope for one more day to see the sun. Like a bottle of wine poured in the ocean, we disappear in Him, become His love in motion. With Martha and Mary, Jesus wept while Lazarus was in his tomb. Ain't all sin to weep with friends when the tears come due. So Jesus wept again to show love comes through all the blue. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. We sing all the way through. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Internet. Hello. This is your host number 4. My name is Yes. This is Jeff, and I'm representing our host number 6. This is Yes.